M&P Sports presents the American Sports Cavalcade. A panorama of speed, color, drama, and excitement. The American Sports Cavalcade.
In any article you might read about the possible use of alternative fuels, the word methanol is always used. You want to know about methanol, go to the experts, the men and women of NHRA Championship Drag Racing, who have been using it as a fuel since the mid-1950s, and today it powers top alcohol dragsters and top alcohol funny cars to speeds over 230 miles per hour in under 6 seconds. Today, in our coverage of the Motorcraft Sportsman Nationals from Firebird International Raceway in Chandler, Arizona, just a few miles from downtown Phoenix, we'll bring you coverage of those classes and more. Hello, everyone. I'm Steve Evans. Now, why is methanol such a popular fuel in drag racing? Well, for a couple of reasons. One, it burns quite cool. It doesn't tend to be explosive like gasoline. It also has a much higher flash point than gasoline. That means you can run higher compression in these engines without detonation. It also costs less than half of what racing gasoline costs, and that's a good thing because you use a great volume of it. Now, the typical blown alcohol funny car motor, like this one in Brad Anderson's car, has this pump at the front. It will suck 4.5 gallons of methanol into the supercharger and into the engine in a single run. That, of course, counts the idling and the starting of the engine and the burnout and the whole competitive run. Now, there's so much fuel going through it, they use 16 spark plugs, 2 per cylinder, and 2 huge magnetos to make sure it all gets fired off. Horsepower, well, about 2,300. Now, to tell us the other category that uses the same type of power plant is Brock Yates.
Well, Steve, this is a top alcohol dragster, and I guess we can probably all remember a day years and years and years ago when methanol fuel was the hot setup until nitro came into play. Now, of course, the top alcohol dragsters run that fuel exclusively. Now, these are relatively small engine cars. They run under a formula of 4.4 pounds per cubic inch. So these engines are around 420, 430 cubic inches, about 1,900 pound automobiles, and capable of running here sometimes in the high fives. Right now, this is the top qualifier of Russ Conroy's. He's at just over 6 seconds. So we're going to see some very, very stout running here. A little warm this afternoon, but that shouldn't affect these automobiles a whole lot. But that's only part of the program. And for more on what we're going to see this afternoon, let's go to our broadcast buddy, Big Daddy Don Garlitz.
Well, Brock, the third category we're going to cover today is Competition Eliminator. I'm in David Nickens' pit. And the reason that I'm here is because I know a sure thing when I see it. He has won this event 4 times in a row. He is a 17-time national event winner, but he has never won the Winston World Championships. I got a good idea that that's one of his major goals for 1991. Now, Competition Eliminator is a unique and exciting class in that you can run a big engine, a small engine. You can put it in a dragster, you can have it in an altered, you could have it in a roadster, or you could have it in a production sedan like we're looking at right here. Now, NHRA makes the class even by having what we call a staggered start, simply meaning you start ahead of your competitor if you have the smaller engine. Now, you have to get to the finish line first, though, in order to be the winner. Kind of reminds me of the old days of drag racing when everybody raced everybody, dragsters, coupes, roadsters, and you had a top eliminator at the end of the day. In this case, however, it's Competition Eliminator. Well, I can just about hear the top alcohol dragsters firing up, so let's go to Steve.
Well, you got good ears, Big Daddy. It is round number 2 of the alcohol dragster set. And it features this car, Tom Pissinger, up against Russ Conroy. Now, in the alcohol dragsters, you'll see a variety of engines as we go through competition this afternoon. You'll see the Hemi, such as Conroy uses, which is really a replica of the late model Chrysler, strengthened to several different manufacturers, Keith Black, Nylodon, and the JP1 motor. And you'll see some Chevrolets, you'll see some Rodaks, you'll see some Oldsmobiles. That's what makes the class interesting, I think, Don Garlitz.
That's right, Steve. It's kind of like the old days of drag racing. There was a lot of different engines and a lot of different styles that could win. And I think it makes it interesting. It's not so highly refined like the fuel classes of today, where just They're almost clones of one another.
You know, 2 weeks ago, the opening event of the season, the Winter Nationals, a small block Chevrolet and a little lightweight Tinker toy car whipped all of the big Hemis and Rodaks and so forth, and the crowd just went wild. These Sportsman cars have a tremendous amount of crowd support because I think a lot of people can identify with them maybe a little more than some of the exotic cars. I know my wallet certainly can. You know, Tom Pissinger, he qualified 8th at a 6.30 second elapsed time. He's out of San Diego, and he beat Houston's Troy Buff in round number 1. His competition, Russ Conroy had a tough one in round 1. He beat Sacramento, California's John Shoemaker.
Now, these cars, Steve, are very closely matched. You'll see them running within, just hundredths of a second of each other. They are finely tuned automobiles, and one reason that is because they don't blow them up so much, they can actually tune an engine.
That's right, but they do bring the RPMs up to a tremendous high off the starting line, and they drive the superchargers as much as 60 and 70% faster than the engine. Unbelievable that they don't blow them up any more than they do. Getting off the mark first, as important in this category as any other. Conroy and Pissinger. And the winner is Conroy. Whoa, very, very quick, knocking on the door of the 5s at 6.05, 225 miles per hour. Let's go to Don Garlits on the starting line with the winning crew chief, Jerry Darian.
Well, Jerry, you were worried about tire shake. It looked pretty smooth to me.
Pretty darn dandy. Went right down that track. I'm really happy. That's our second quickest pass of our life, and our fastest, 225 and change, and the win light.
Very impressive.
Jerry Darian, an old friend, himself a multi-national event winner as a driver. So let's watch these two cars. You can see, well, you won't see really any starting line advantage because it didn't exist. They left right together. Pissinger in the near lane just didn't have the low-end horsepower to get that car up on the tires, to really squirt it off the mark. So he instantly was a full car length behind, and it stayed that way just about the entire quarter mile. The winner, Conroy, at 6:05, 225. Let's go to Brock.
Russ Conroy getting his helmet off after a winning effort here. 05, Russ. Can't be all bad, huh?
That's a good start.
Yes, sir.
Yes, 05, we qualify with 03. With an 05, that puts us still in the ball game.
Sure does. Going to get a little more heat in the racetrack next time around, but that shouldn't affect it all that much, I wouldn't imagine.
No, that won't affect these cars. That won't have a major effect. You take a little bit of clutch out if it gets real bad, but I don't think that'd be a problem at all.
Good deal. Well, good pass.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, he wasn't quite as excited as his crew chief, Jerry Darian, over those career best numbers. All right, here we go. Our next pair in round number 2 of Alcohol Dragsters. It will be Eldon P. Slick. Is that his real name? Nobody's sure. Versus Jay Payne, a couple of front-line runners that always put on a terrific show. Now, Eldon Slick is part of a kind of a loosely grouped club down in the San Diego area that refers to themselves as the San Diego Zoo. Eldon qualified in the 7th spot and beat Mark Niver of Phoenix in round 1. Now, his opponent here, Jay Payne from Upland, California, qualified second at a great 6:04, and yesterday was involved in a very interesting head-on confrontation with a lady named Anita Michaela from Finland. Now, she had barely qualified at a 6:31. The two squared off side by side, but watch the car in the far lane. That's the Finnish lady race car driver. She red-lighted and then got loose. The rear end came around, and she got into the wall pretty hard. Parachute came out, actually was knocked out by the impact with the wall, and that helped her out a little bit. Got upside down, but all the safety equipment did its job, and she walked away without a scratch. Did a nice little finish roll to complete the incident. Sorry the young lady had such a long trip just to destroy her race car. But that is drag racing, as they say. Don Garlits?
You bet. I've destroyed plenty of them, Steve, just like that.
Yeah, that was boring compared to some of yours. All right, here we go. It is Slick and Payne. Jay Payne in the near lane. Eldon P. Slick in the far lane. A good hole shot by Payne, but it's not enough. Eldon P. Slick, 6:07, 225 miles per hour to drive around a 6:13 at 222 miles per hour. As we said, leaving that starting line can be everything, but on other times it just isn't enough to get the job done. And I'll tell you, Payne, I mean, 500 is a big hole shot, Don.
Well, it is unbelievable. You know, these cars really never cease to amaze me. Payne takes a tremendous starting line advantage, but Slick gets around him in the middle. Then both cars run almost identical speed on the far end. So that acceleration through the center of the race course is very important.
Oh, it was a good one.
That was a good one. 607 to 613. Alan, couldn't be a whole lot closer than that.
That was good. That's why we're here. We're here to run with the best of them, and that's by far one of the best of them.
Race car obviously working well. Can't have any complaints about that after that kind of a pass.
It's good. It's a new deal. It's parts from probably 5 or 6 years ago. We're trying to use some common sense, put a lot of fuel in it, and not kill it.
Okay, back to the pits one more time, huh?
Thanks. Yep.
All right. Alan Slick.
I told you he had a lot of fun drag racing. Eldon P. Slick. We're back at Firebird Raceway for the NHRA Motorcraft Sportsman Nationals. The Alcohol Dragster competition continues, and they actually carry a tachometer on board. Many of the supercharged classes do not, but it's so critical to know how hard they're winding these engines and how hard they leave the starting line. Now, Blaine Johnson will be involved in this next race, Don Garlitz, and he is the Winston champion.
Something else interesting. Johnson has lane choice, and he has taken the near lane. He has put Rick Ewens over in the far lane because there has been a problem in that lane. A big problem. And earlier, Steve took a look to see what had happened.
Let me tell you the sad saga of Charlie and the concrete truck. Charlie Allen is the owner of this fantastic racing facility, and as a former pro funny car racer, he wants his racetrack absolutely perfect. Before the season started, they had a tune and test session here in Phoenix. The times were sensational, but there was a little bitty bump in the left lane, right about where I'm standing. If you hit it, well, the car kind of lost control a little bit, maybe lost traction. Charlie said, rebuild the whole starting line. Both concrete pads make it perfect for the Arizona Nationals. The right lane, well, it turned out perfect. The left lane, that was out of a different concrete truck. It was a bad batch. And last weekend, the scheduled weekend for this event, during qualifying, the left lane started to break up. Cars were having control problems. They couldn't get traction. Charlie Allen and NHRA said, hold it right now. Cancel the event in the interest of safety primarily, and that's why we're back this weekend on what would appear to be a perfect track. If anything, the left lane now may be the better of the two. But there are still some drivers, Don Garlitz, who have a show-me attitude, and Blaine Johnson is one of them. That's why he's put Ewens over there on that left side. You let somebody go set low ET or do anything good in that left lane, they'll all jump over there. That's just the way racers think.
That's exactly right. Right now, Rick Ewens is very concerned about whether the lane is good or bad.
Blaine Johnson from Santa Maria, California, qualified number 3 at a brilliant 6:04. He beat Bobby Taylor in round number 1. Rick Ewens, well, he's off the pace a bit. Qualified 11th at a 6:20, but he did handle the measure of Ted Gord of Tacoma, Washington in round number 1. But I don't think Johnson, who runs a very powerful Oldsmobile engine, a different kind of combination totally than the Hemi and Ewens car, is too concerned with Ewens. Don, I think he'll be very conservative.
He probably will. Probably won't squeeze the light and hope on powering by him down course.
All right, they're just about staged. Those RPMs come up to an incredible number. It is Ewens away first, but that lead doesn't last long. Blaine Johnson thunders by at 6:07, 227 miles per hour. Good top speed. Don Garlitz is at the starting line with Blaine's brother and crew chief Allen.
Well, you're right in there with the field. 6:07, the same as the last pair.
Yeah, I don't know about that first part of the racetrack right there. I think I have a little overpowered on the starting line, so hopefully we'll come back and get a bottom end straightened away. I think it'll be pretty fast.
Well, it's pretty fast now. But Allen, like all crew chiefs, is very greedy. He wants more and more power. Our next pair will feature this car and driver from Reno, Nevada. That is Roger Prim. He uses a Brad Anderson-style Hemi engine. Anderson's manifold and has a combination they call the BAE. And he is up against, in the opposite lane, a man to whom, well, the adjective veteran isn't strong enough. Jimmy Scott has been around this sport forever. Just loves to race alcohol dragsters. Brock?
Well, Blaine Johnson continues his winning ways. 6:07, lots of steam out of the Oldsmobile this afternoon.
Yeah, it's doing all right. It's pretty hot out here. I thought we might go a little quicker than that today. We'll have to see where we are in the tune-up.
What are you looking for, Blaine? We're going to get a little warmer here, but that shouldn't bother these cars all that. Can he get near the, 6.0s?
Yeah, we should be running right down towards the 5. Maybe in the final round, we could look for a 5 on one of the cars.
Okay, we'll be looking. Good luck.
Thank you.
The Winston champ, very confident as always. He should be. Last year he wrapped up the title by mid-July, just barely halfway through the season. Back at the starting line, we see Prim and Scott backing up. You'll see no one's in a big hurry. With alcohol through fuel, you really don't need to be. In fact, most of them run no water at all in the block.
That's right, Steve. They want them hot.
Well, getting hot as the engine belonged to Roger Prim from Reno, Nevada. He qualified fourth at a 6:06, beat Larry Sutton from California in round number 1. Now, these two qualified very closely together. Jimmy Scott in the 5th position, also at a 6:06, just 2 thousandths lower. And Jimmy beat one of the big guys in round 1. Bill Barney fell to the hands of Scott. So let's keep an eye on these two cars. They're very, very close in performance.
I just love when they bring these engines up. That's another thing that reminds me of the old days. Put them on the wood and go.
Oh boy, I can't believe the crankshafts stay in these things, but somehow they do. Good parts and pieces. Scott, known for his hole shots, well, he dies by his own sword. He left too soon, is disqualified. He got to the finish line first, but that doesn't matter. He left a red light in his wake. Roger Prim wins it at a 6.06 elapsed time. Scott threw away a 6:08. Probably wouldn't want anyway, had he left on time. Speed for the winner, 228 miles per hour. So now we have our pairings for the final 4 in this class. Roger Prim versus Russ Conroy. Conroy has the lane choice. He had the quicker ET of the round. Eldon P. Slick up against the Oldsmobile of Blaine Johnson. And Slick has the lane choice. And that generally goes to Blaine. He's that good. All right, let's go to Brock with the winner.
Okay, Roger Prim out of his helmet here. We had a red light in the other lane, which makes it good, and he also had a 6:06, which is even better, I would imagine, because that's a real stout time here.
Yeah, the track's pretty good this weekend. They did a hell of a job getting it together, and I thought he beat me. I really thought he beat me.
Well, he would have if they hadn't seen that little red light there.
Yeah. Well, I got to hand it to my crew. They've done a great job this weekend, and they got the thing running pretty good.
Roger, what do you think it's going to take to win this thing?
I think this evening it's going to take at least a 6 flat.
Going to get quicker, huh?
Yeah, I think it's going to get quicker. As the air gets better, it's going to get quicker.
Okay, well, go get him.
Okay, thank you very much.
Roger Prim.
Okay, thank you, guys. Stay with us. We'll be back to the Motorcraft Sportsman Nationals. We're back at Firebird Raceway near Phoenix, Arizona for the NHRA Motorcraft Sportsman Nationals. I'm Steve Evans, along with 3-time Winston Top Fuel champion Big Daddy Don Garlitz and my buddy Brock Yates. Now we're shifting gears, so to speak. This is round 2 of the supercharged Alcohol Funny Cars. Very similar engines, but as you can see, the motor in front of the driver, the chassis draped with a fiberglass or carbon fiber replica body. And this man, Bucky Austin of Kent, Washington, is getting a huge break here. His competition was scheduled to be Rick Hinkleman. Hinkleman did not show in the lane, some breakage apparently. So Bucky Austin gets a freebie, a bye run. And Don Garlitz, these are the biggest engines in all of drag racing.
Yes, they are. And these cars really appeal to the spectators because they're in every way just like a nitro funny car. They just don't have that sound and smell.
And in some ways, they're harder to drive. You have to shift gears in these cars. They run the great big tire, and if it gets the slightest traction imbalance, the car moves around all over the lanes. It can really be a handful. Bucky Austin taking it easy, saving his parts at 640, 178 miles per hour. Lane choice not quite as critical with these cars as it is with some. So as the twin parachutes slow Bucky Austin, let's go to the starting line. Don Garlitz with the winning crew chief, Sam Shockley.
Looked like he left pretty good.
Yeah, but it's kind of laid down at the top end, so he probably shut it off to save it.
Man, a few words. All right, our next pair will feature Pete Duhart. You haven't heard of Pete Duhart? Well, he hasn't been around very long. A fairly new driver at the wheel of the gorgeous Thunderbird-bodied car of the Minor brothers from Northern California, and he is up against Bad Brad Anderson, and that's a nickname this man has earned, Don.
Well, Brad Anderson's been around a long time, and he knows a lot about alcohol racing. In fact, when you see BAE, that means that the car has got the Brad Anderson combination on it, which means the supercharger, the intake manifold, the heads, the valve covers, everything. So he's deep into it.
Let's quickly go to Brock at the far end.
Bucky is 640, of course, a single pass. What were you looking for in that run?
Well, we hopped it up a little bit. We were seeing if we could run it low O, and it spun the tires on the starting line. Then it shook real hard in the middle of the track, so I just shut it off because I think we have another single going into the final. So I think we just went a little bit overboard, and I think it was a good time to do it since we get a single. So we'll see what happens the next run.
Yeah, that's a good time to learn this sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is. I mean, very seldom in a national event do you have, any time to practice during eliminations, but sometimes luck has been a little hard to me at times, and maybe my luck's turning around, so.
We hope so.
All right, thanks a lot.
Okay, for sure. Bucky Austin.
The Bucky tells us about all the things we can't see or feel. Let me tell you a little bit about the man in the blue car. That is Pete Duhart. Pete used to be a member of Kenny Bernstein's Funny Car crew. He wanted to drive more than most of us want to continue breathing. He finally went to Frank Hawley's drag racing school down in Florida. We're looking at Brad Anderson here talking about Pete Duhart. He didn't do very well. It just wasn't a natural. So we went back to the school again and again, and all of a sudden it clicked, and Pete Duhart right now in that blue Thunderbird is handling one of these cars as well as anybody out here, Don. It just took him a little longer, and he had to work a bit harder. Talking about the handsome man from Huntington Beach, California. Anybody that's been around drag racing at all knows Brad Anderson is the ultimate inventor, a guy that loves to conceive new products and new parts to make these cars go faster and last longer. So Anderson has got to be a big favorite here. He qualified #1. Duhart qualified #9.
But you can imagine how hard Duhart would like to beat Anderson, because that would be important. That would kind of certify him as an alcohol funny driver.
And you know what? He left on Anderson. He left way ahead of Anderson. And he beat the #1 qualifier. Even the car owners are a little amazed. Duhart at 6:09. Anderson's performance fell off. Not only did he not lead with Duhart, he didn't run with him either. And on the starting line, Don Garlitz is with one of the car owners, Fred Miner. Big Daddy?
6:09, pretty impressive.
You can hang in there once in a while. We've been having nothing but trouble all weekend, and it's just our turn, that's all.
You beat a tough car.
Yeah, you betcha, Brad. Anytime you can beat him, it's plenty good, I'll tell you that. He's stout.
Brad Anderson, as always, getting the respect of everyone who knows him in this sport of drag racing. Don, watch the blue car. What a great lead.
Yeah, the kid did good. I tell you, I got a lot of faith in that drag racing school. I think that's where you should go if you want to run these cars, and this proves it. Young man out there racing against the best and pulled it off. Look at him go.
Well, absolutely. I expected Anderson to go blowing by, especially look at this. Duhart got very close to the center line, and if you cross that, you're automatically disqualified, but he stayed in his own lane.
Get that helmet unbuckled, and we'll find out what how he pulled that super race. Pete, super job.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here, finishing first in the right lane. You know, we didn't have lane choice there, and Brad had his choice, and the Miner brothers have really prepared a great race car. We just tried to get it down the racetrack as best we could. I tried to do my job on the starting line, and so far it seems to be paying off, Rock.
6:09.
6:09, we'll take it, and we'll be happy to have it.
Well, a great show. Great hole shot. Everybody was just jumping up and down as he watched that pass. It was a great race.
Well, you know, Brad had a performance advantage on us going into the second round here. A week ago, we ran 6:07, and we ran a 6:22 trying to get down that left lane, which was a bit suspect last week. The right lane seemed to be okay for us. I did my job on the starting line, and the car held up as well.
Super job. We'll see you
very much. Thank you.
Okay. Pete Duhart.
Hey, he's not too pumped up, is he, Brock? Careful, Pete. Don't drop your helmet. All right, our next pair is the best from the east and the best from the west. Bob Newberry in the far lane, eastern driver. Pat Austin in the near lane, the western driver from Tacoma, Washington. This is going to be one incredible drag race and one everybody will be watching. But before it transpires, let's go back down to the far end. Brock has Brad Anderson.
Well, Brad, that was a great show. You know, I know you've run so well here at Phoenix over the years that we sort of thought that was a foregone conclusion. But Pete, a great pass, and he was just hard to beat on that one. 6:09.
What'd I go?
I don't know. 6:11. Yeah, it was a super close.
I got real close up in second gear, and I thought that was it. And right away, he pulled away from me, and that was all the road. So.
Well, that's what drag racing is all about, and I know you were sad to lose, but nonetheless, great show.
We'll get him next week.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Good job, Brad.
Okay.
Brad Anderson handles it very well because he's been around a long time. He's lost a few, even though he's won more than he's lost. But Don Garlitz, I got to tell you, they're always just a teeny bit of a grudge match here with Pat Austin, the Winston champion, the Castrol GTX Oldsmobile, gets together with the Key Auto Parts car of Bob Newberry from Schenectady, New York. They just have a different style from different parts of the country. Now, they just like to beat on each other's head. Austin, even though he's still in his 20s, has won over 30 national event alcohol titles. Bob Newberry has a stack of them, too, mostly won on the Eastern Seaboard.
Well, Steve, this should be a really good race because both of these cars qualified very close together. Pat Austin qualified number 5 with a 6:10, and Bob Newberry number 4 with a 6:10. So it's going to be a starting line reaction that decides this race if the cars perform like they qualified.
Okay, let's keep an eye on it. A little tire smoke out of the Austin car, even though he was out first. He headed for the rail. I think he had to get out of it, Don. And it is Newberry at 6:03. I can't imagine either driver yet knows who won. Let's go to the starting line. Don's with the winning crew chief. His name is Ed Copper. Big Daddy?
Wow, 6:03.
That was the best for our weekend. That's best all weekend.
You don't see many of them better than that ever.
I always want to do it against Pat. Thank you.
See what I mean about a little bit of grudge there? Big Daddy, let's watch Austin. See, he had the whole shot. Then what happened to him?
Oh, he was brilliant off the starting line. But what happened? They shipped early. These are 3-speed cars. And you can see a little bit of smoke come out from under his tires. And that's all they needed for Newberry to move right out in front of him. Of course, Newberry had about the same power as Austin, maybe a little bit more. He ran a mile an hour more speed, but that's not much. It was that little smoke off the starting line that cost him the race.
So the pairings are established for Alcohol Funny Car. Pete Duhart against Bob Newberry. Newberry will have the lane choice in the final 4. And Bucky Austin will make that the final 3. Bucky Austin, boy, is he on a roll. As far as luck is concerned, he again will have a single. Let's go down to Brock. He is with Bob Newberry.
Well, there you see the two competitors, obviously strong rivals, but Bob Newberry goes down to talk to a disappointed Pat Austin, certainly, at a great drag race, and almost hate to see anybody lose that, but 6:03, Bob, quick time of this round, and got to feel good about it.
6:03 is good. We really didn't qualify with the number that maybe we should have. We had some problems to start with, but 6:03 is good. We were a little afraid of the racetrack. We had lane choice. It mattered. It must be. I don't know what Pat ran, but Pat's a tough car to beat.
Yeah, just a little bit off your mark and 06. So he was real fast too. So I know you guys were side by. You know, there was no doubt about that until the light came on. Really,
it was a pretty close drag race. I couldn't see him going down the track, but he must have been right alongside of me.
Any changes for the next round?
Well, we'll have to look at what we have here. I don't think we'll have to make any. What we're going to try to do is be consistent and not make a mistake out there.
That was a great pass. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Stay with us. We'll be back with more from the Motorcraft Sportsman Nationals. If you like variety, welcome back to Phoenix and our coverage of Competition Eliminator. Now, this was all round 2 earlier today. Want variety? How about a rear-engine A dragster, Tom Hayner, from outside of Chicago, Illinois. He was up against the full-bodied I Aldrin of Mark Chaperon. And also earlier today, Brock Yates and I had a chance to, well, kind of compare and contrast the styles you find in this exciting category of competition. For years on the professional side of drag racing, the wheel-standing, gear-jamming pro stockers have been a very popular category. And I'm sure some of their fans, though, have fantasized what would happen if you took that 1,200 horsepower engine and put it in something lighter, say like a dragster at 1,700 pounds instead of 2,350, something a little more aerodynamic. Well, Tom and Meredith Hayner of the Chicago area can give us some of the answers of what would happen, because that's what they're doing. This is a 500 cubic inch Oldsmobile Pro Stock engine that formerly ran in the Albert Clark Don Coons car. Now it's got the aluminum heads, Pro Stock stop, same carburetor, same kind of cast iron block. The only difference is in the drivetrain. Instead of a 4-speed Linko, this is a more compact Liberty transmission, so the engine can be further back and closer to the rear axle. Now, what about the performance numbers? Pro Stockers run about, what, 720s? This car runs 690s. Pro Stock struggled at 190. This car does it with ease. The only problem is it is also the quickest car in Competition Eliminator, and Tom has to give the handicap advantage to every driver he faces. And in the first round here, that's about half the racetrack.
Well, Steve, that big advantage that you're talking about for Tom is yet another example of the enormous contrast that make this class so neat. Mark Chaperone's car is a classic Pro Stock automobile, a NASCAR, perfectly, really great piece of workmanship, but unlike the Pro Stocks, it doesn't carry that big 500-inch V8, but instead a little 275-inch Buick V8. Big 4-barrel carburetor, but of course Mark Chaperone, who runs this car, they had to add about 600 pounds of ballast to this automobile, so it's right on 3,000 pounds worth of weight. makes it plenty heavy. And in fact, he's going to have a 2.68 second advantage over Tom. So he, like you say, that's about a half a racetrack or almost a full afternoon of running in drag racing. But it's going to be a wild race. Two interesting and vividly contrasting automobiles going against each other here. Going to be fun.
It was fun when the two met, and of course the equalizer is NHRA's performance index established for each class. With the I altered, it was 968. For the A dragster, a 761. Subtract the two, dial the difference into the electronic Christmas tree, and that is the amount of handicap head start Mark Chaparoni got. Here was the actual race. Tom Hayner just couldn't wait. You got to be patient if you run an A dragster. He left too soon. He foul started. Chaparoni won it at 921, 146 miles per hour. Now that 921 is way under the 968 index. Well, all of the really hot cars do run under that index. All right, and here was the next pair. Again, variety. The blown Corvette altered of Dan Nicholson, 808 the index. Jim Butler's B economy dragster, 786, subtract the two, 22/100ths of a second, went to the Corvette in the far lane. Here, we looked at the small cubic inch carbureted dragster with an automatic transmission, and again, the pressure is on that driver that has to wait. But that's equalized because had Nicholson in the Corvette red lighted, you'd have automatically won before you left the starting line. He did not. It was a darn good race all the way down the Firebird Raceway quarter mile. The little dragster trying to play catch up, but could not do it. It was Nicholson winning at 755, 162 miles per hour with a very popular but hard to control Corvette. Well, next up in round two earlier, the C altered of David Nickens from Texas. He's the hot dog in the class, 852 the index. He was up against Stan Northington, an A economy dragster, bigger engine, index of 771. There you see the A economy dragster. The E means it has to do with carburetor rules and transmission rules, trying to keep the cost of racing down there. As far as the car in the near lane, David Nickens' machine, now the cost of racing there is astronomical. These machines as expensive to run probably as a pro stock car, and nobody runs them better than Nickens, having won the last 4 races here at Firebird International Raceway. All right, the tree came down first for David Nickens. He was long gone, and again, a dragster just couldn't wait. Stan Northington red lighted away, a 778. Nickens won it at 8 flat, 153 miles per hour. Then just the way the ladder laid out, things got a little bit weird, and that some drivers, 3 in a row, as a matter of fact, had bye runs. They didn't have to race anybody, and it gave them a chance to find out just how far under the index they could actually go. The C Super Modified car here, that is Rick Kelly. Kelly was all by himself. As the crowd looked on, it's a gorgeous automobile, beautiful red Camaro. And even when you have a bye run, if you're a smart driver, you always play the tree. That's how you stay sharp. And a beautiful light was cut by Rick Kelly. In Competition Eliminator, the tree is a half a second between lights. It's 4/10 with the pro category, so they can't leave quite as soon. A 950 elapsed time was the result on his bye run at 126.92 miles per hour. And next up in Comp Round 2 with a bye run was Kip Martin. And again, we see the variety. Back to a dragster here. This is an A economy dragster with that index of 771. Martin on his bye run stays very carefully. He always pretends it's real competition. Otherwise, you're liable to kind of lose the rhythm. Wheels up in the air and running as hard as he can because lane choice is in effect in comp as well. The one who runs closest to his particular index in the previous round has lane choice. Great 738, 153 miles per hour was the time for Kip Martin. And the last to have his bye run was Todd Patterson. Patterson with the C Super Modified car. Great deal of attention paid to the appearance of the Chevrolet Camaro. Beautiful automobile. And there again, you see another driver trying to stay razor sharp on the light. Patterson found that he was a little bit off there in his reaction time, and he knows that when round 3 comes about, he better be a bit quicker. A 943, 118 miles per hour. We'll be back with round 3 action in comp right after this. You think of factory participation in drag racing with the full-bodied stock cars from Detroit, let me tell you, there's a lot of Oldsmobile engineers interested in the Oldsmobile-powered Alcohol Dragster. Blaine Johnson, we're looking at his pit area as they get ready to face off with Eldon P. Sluck. But first of all, we have got for you Competition Eliminator featuring David Nickens' Oldsmobile here heating up his tires. He'll be up against yet another Oldsmobile, Mark Chaparoni from San Diego, California, the car that Brock highlighted a bit earlier with a very small cubic inch engine. Chaperone loves this kind of an automobile. He'd like to be pro stock racing, but he says this is a lot more fun and a heck of a lot cheaper. David Nickens, well, he makes his living building racing engines, and his car is his rolling laboratory. Chaperone on the 968 index for Alden. Nickens a much quicker car at 851. It is Chaperone who will have the head start at 1.17 seconds. But don't worry about Nickens getting nervous as we saw in round 2 in red lighting. He's a real veteran of this kind of racing, Don Garland.
You bet. And 1.17 seconds is like a lifetime in drag racing. So it takes nerves of steel to sit there and wait for that light to turn green in your lane.
And also, as Mark Chaperone can tell you, if the guy passes you, it's almost like you're tied to his stump. He just blows your doors off, and I think that's what Nickens is going to do to Chaperone. You bet he does. 8.07 at 144 miles an hour. The Mark's 943, not as close to his index as Nickens was, 143 miles per hour. So, advancing to the following round goes David Nickens. Next up, we'll have an A dragster, a economy dragster, actually, up against a C super modified car. But first, let's go down to Brock Yates, who's with David Nickens.
Well, David Nickens continues to roll here. Good pass. What do you think?
Well, Brock, I tell you, we made just a tremendous run that time. Our car's working good, and you know, to win one of these races, you got to have a lot of things go right for you. The crew's got to do the job, and Mike and Robert have been exceptional this weekend. We've been on top of the clutch, and you know, the good Lord's got to be on your side too. And I tell you, we've had a lot of breaks this weekend, and we intend to win this race.
Well, you just keep going. Let's have a couple of more.
Thank you very much.
Good job.
Okay, thanks a lot, Brock. And now it's time for the C Super Modified and the E Economy Dragster to square off. And Big Daddy, I think you can just tell by looking at these cars who gets the head start and who doesn't.
Yeah, I think this dragster's going to have to sit and wait for his life.
Boy, he sure is. Kip Martin from Augusta, Kansas. Now, these two guys could have stayed home and done this as the local dragster because they're both from Augusta, Kansas. Todd Patterson and Kip Martin, I'm sure, have raced each other many, many times. As you said, Patterson will lead first by 2.17 seconds. That doesn't seem long if you go 1/1000, 2/1000, but sitting in a car, staged, braked up against the transmission, ready to uncoil that thing, it is an eternity. But as I said before, if the first driver red lights, the other guy's already won it. That is the equalizer. Patterson away and a red light for Kip Martin. Patterson doesn't know it unless he's on the rear view mirror. He probably thinks he lost at this point in time, but he'll get a time slip with a big W on it because he won it at 9:51, just 116 miles an hour. He really didn't extend the car, so he probably knew there was a red light. 7:30, 185 was wasted by Martin. All right, continuing along with Competition Eliminator round number 3. Next up is the beautiful Corvette of Dan Nicholson. And this is probably the last time we'll ever see this car. They are retiring it in favor of a new machine. It's awful hard these days to run a blown car on gasoline because of some new rules that don't allow them to cool the fuel, that things tend to want to detonate badly. Let's go down to the far end with Brock.
So Todd Patterson benefits from a red light and also from a good pass. Had a chance to talk with him. All right, onward and upward.
Thank you, thank you. I knew, you know, going off our qualifying positions that he was going to have to go for a light, and I was just hoping I could get a decent one myself. And obviously I got a green one because I didn't see my, I seen that my win light was on and his wasn't, so I knew that I'd won, so I just shut it off.
You knew right away. You could see. You didn't see his red light. You just saw.
I have it's a little different for me. I've been used to driving an automatic car, and it's a 2-speed, and I shipped it once, and this is only my second race in this 5-speed car, so there's a little bit more going on in you know, going down the track. So when I hit 5th gear, I looked up and seen my light was on, so right then I knew I'd won.
Good job.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good. Thank you.
And that accounts for why he was able to get off the pedal and save his car a bit. All right, this is Rick Kelly moving into position with the C Super Modified car. It's Kelly against the Corvette of Nicholson. Rick Kelly from Pasadena, Texas. They don't have a rose parade there. Dan Nicholson is from Southern California, from Laverne to be exact, the home of Pomona Raceway and the annual Cheap Auto Parts Winter Nationals and Winston Finals. Now, the difference between the two indexes is 1.82 seconds. The advantage goes to Kelly in the C Super Modified car. Dick, did you ever try this kind of racing?
No. Well, I guess the nearest thing to it was some stock car racing back in the early 60s. But in those days, they just placed the car out in the drag strip that had the advantage in that you got to see them start in front of you.
Would they just pace it off?
Yeah.
Is that right? Oh, boy, can you imagine doing that? Your officials had never lived to leave the racetrack. There'd be so many problems. All right, finally the blown Corvette moves in. He has to be a bit patient. No, he doesn't. The red light. Nicholson knows before he ever hammers the throttle that he has won here in round number 3. And his crew beams as he crosses the finish line. 7.68 seconds, 150 miles per hour. Let me tell you, that's a pretty good ride and basically a kind of a stock-bodied Corvette. All right, the pairings for the comp semifinals. They are going to find Dan Nicholson. Racing Todd Patterson. Patterson will have the lane choice. He ran closer to his index than Dan did. The other half will be David Nickens. Nickens has lane choice, but apparently nobody to race the way the ladder falls. That happens quite often in these huge categories. We're back with more coverage from Phoenix, but first a quick word about NHRA Now, presented by Castrol GTX. It's a 24-hour drag racing information line for the latest information on your favorite drivers and events. Just call this number, 1-900-468-NHRA, the Castrol GTX information line. All right, I'm Steve Evans, along with Don Garlitz and Brock Yates, and we are in now the final 4 alcohol dragsters, Don, and this is where it gets intense.
Yes, it does. These cars are the derivatives of the top fuel dragsters, but no nitromethane. Everything else is about the same. Blowers, engines. Now, they do have smaller cubic inches to match the weight.
But they try to pull the same big tire, Don.
Well, they do that with a 3-speed transmission, and they multiply the torque that way.
All right, we have got Russ Conroy versus Roger Prim. You're looking at Conroy there, Prim, on the left-hand side of your screen, the near lane. Oh, yeah, this is good. Alcohol Dragster racing, and it is the man from Reno, Mr. Prim at 6:02, the Conroy 6:09, and a big winning speed for the dragster, 230 miles per hour. It wasn't too many years ago the fuel dragsters were having a hard time getting to that. So RP Racing goes into the final round, and here, Big Daddy, is the dreaded Oldsmobile of Blaine Johnson.
Well, Steve, there's some kind of a problem. They stepped on it to do the burnout. The engine responded kind of strangely, and Johnson has shut the motor off. He didn't like the way it sounded. It was some kind of a blower malfunction.
So Eldon P. Slick will have a single run. I doubt that he knows that yet. He's strapped in so tightly, and he's backing up. Has not yet seen a crew person or starter buster couch that can give him that the sign every racer loves to see, and that's one finger in the air, meaning you're all by yourself, buddy. And that will put Eldon into the final round. And boy, you don't get many breaks like that. I'm sure he knows by this point in time. But they will want lane choice over Roger Prim. And that will be really the race here. The race against Eldon P. Slick and the electronic timer, trying to run quicker than Prim's 6.02 with a 9. That will be very difficult to do. That would be one of the best runs ever for this current driver combination. Oh, yeah, you're saying that.
Now he knows.
Yeah, now he knows. This is good. You sure that's right? Yeah, we're sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead. It's all right, Eldon. Eldon reluctantly making this buy run. He wants to race somebody. Hey, he's that kind of guy, too. These guys out of San Diego and the over-the-belt gang, as they sometimes call themselves, just love to have a good time. Listen to the motor come up. Let's just listen to the whole run.
Boy, that's some ours, ain't it, Steve?
When one car's out there by itself, you can actually hear the shifting going on. A 6.05, Eldon misses lane choice by 3/100ths of a second, 225 miles an hour. Down on the starting line with Blaine Johnson is Garland.
Well, that's pretty disappointing, wasn't it, Blaine, because it's been running real good.
Yeah, that's real disappointing. We had big plans for this race, and we have to wait till next weekend, I guess.
What did it feel like in the car? What did you actually feel when the engine shut off?
Well, I heard a pop, and I felt it pop. I don't know exactly what happened, but I shut it off. It was running fine after it popped, but there was definitely a problem somewhere.
Well, Blaine had big plans for the race, but the race didn't have big plans for Blaine. We'll be back at the Motorcraft Sportsman Nationals with Competition Eliminator. We're back in the Valley of the Sun and Firebird International Raceway Park for more coverage of the NHRA Motorcraft Sportsman Nationals. I'm Steve Evans, along with Big Daddy Don Garlitz and Brock Yates. And right now it is time for the final 4 in Competition Eliminator. Well, to be technical, the final 3. There'll be this race and then a bye by David Nickens. But this race right here will well be worth watching. The Corvette here, the topless Corvette, has an awful lot of fans. Dan Nicholson, it's one of the toughest cars to run. Supercharged, unpredictable, not very consistent sometimes, but he still wins with it on an index of 806. Now, Todd Patterson, has a pretty reliable, fairly easy to drive compared to the Corvette. C super modified car. Don, wouldn't you agree the Corvette's got to be a handful, that blower, short wheelbase?
Oh, yeah, we've watched it go all over the track. Plus, he has to wait.
And he waited well, but not too long. A much better light by Nicholson. By 0.08 of a second, he powers by easily 7.47 seconds at 177 miles an hour. That is really fast in a car like that. And that puts him into the final round. And he already knows who will have to race. It'll be David Nickens. Don, watch the replay.
Steve, in your wildest imagination, how must Nicholson feel sitting there, waiting, watching that car go down the racetrack? You know, it has to make you nervous, not even on the light, but also on the track itself. You've got to stay right in the groove, and all the time you got this car out in front of you.
I think probably the secret is not watching the other car go down the track, if that's possible. Let's go to Brock Yates at the far end.
Well, here we go again. Nicholson versus Nickens. That's going to be an interesting show.
Should be a good one.
What do you reckon? Any change you're going to make in the race car?
Yeah, we're going to give it a little bit more blower boost this time.
Shades of Top Fuel Racing. Blower boost.
Yeah, a little blower boost and a little more magneto. Those are things that David Nickens can't do with a normally aspirated motor, such as he has in that Castrol Oldsmobile. But he's going to waltz into the final round here. All he's got to do is get it down the racetrack. Let's see how he... In fact, that's all he is going to do is chug it down the racetrack. He's not worried about lane choice. One more run on that drivetrain might be just enough to have a break on the starting line. You know what I mean, Big?
You bet, and the lanes have been very even. The repair on the track was great.
Oh, yeah, perfectly done. All right, so we have the final round established in competition eliminator. It will be, of course, David Nickens against Dan Nicholson, and Nickens just gave up lane choice by putting down the racetrack. Stay with us. We'll be back for the supercharged alcohol classes right after this. We're back with more of the NHRA Motorcraft Sportsman Nationals at Firebird International Raceway outside of Phoenix, Arizona. I'm Steve Evans along with Don Garlitz, Brock Yates, and that is the luckiest man in drag racing, Bucky Austin, with yet another 5-run, his second one of the day. Now, the first time he flipped the car off when it shook a little bit. This time, it looks, Don Garlitz, like I can make a full pass.
Well, you know, he's going to have to race somebody in a minute, so he better figure out what that thing can do.
Well, what it can do is a 612, not bad, at 220 miles per hour. So Bucky Austin makes the final round without too much of a problem. Let's go down to the starting line. Don is with his crew chief, Sam Shockley.
Sometimes it's hard to get psyched up for a single, but you did pretty good there.
Yeah, we're still testing, and we did better that time. We're going to try to do better. We got to hop it up, race Newberry, or whoever wins this race.
You need about another 500s, don't you?
Yeah, it's laying down on the top end, so we got to get after it there. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Sam. Sam knows how to end those interviews, doesn't he, Don?
Yeah.
Get in and get out. Well, he mentioned Bob Newberry as if he thought Newberry was going to win. Well, he certainly does carry the big credentials as a driver into this other half of the Final Four. Newberry, a thundering burnout, and he's up against the fellow we talked about, the graduate of the Frank Hawley Drag Racing School, and a beautiful blue Thunderbird-bodied car of the Minor Brothers. This is Pete Duhart. Pete I don't know, he's looked good. What do you think? You're the driver.
Well, you know, I tell you, he does look good. Makes a nice burnout, too, and that's one of the things that Frank Hawley at the Drive Racing School emphasizes is burnouts.
Let's go down to Brock.
Okay, Bucky, 612, and now you got to race somebody.
Yeah, well, we stepped on a little harder. We went back to where we ran 610 the other day, and it still laid down a little bit in high gear, so I shut it off again early, about 900 feet instead of 600 or 700 feet. So I think we're back getting on the right track, so it should be a good final again like it was in Pomona.
Okay. So we'll be watching. You're going to watch these two guys. Who do you think? Newberry, you're going to have to race, or what?
Both of them are tough competitors. I'd have to give the edge to Bob Newberry right now.
Well, we're going to see.
Thank you.
You know, look at the Bucky's speed of 220 miles an hour. He did shut it off early, so that 612 might have been even better. There is Newberry staging. He gets the edge from just about everybody. Sam Shockley and Bucky Austin think that he's the guy to beat here. Pete Duhart in the near lane, bringing up those RPMs. Duhart straps it on Newberry. What a hole shot. Is it enough? Oh, it is just barely enough. Listen to these numbers. Newberry runs an outstanding 6:03. Pete Newhart, the rookie, runs a 6:08, but Pete got there first. Had a little trouble stopping the car down in the sand, but everything is reported to be okay. That's what that's for, a little runoff area. Watch this, huh, Don?
Well, I'll tell you what, if he was carrying a report card and going to carry it back to Frank Hawley, he'd definitely get an A for this one. Makes a beautiful starting line advantage, and he didn't have as good an EP as Newberry. A 6:08 to a 6:03, but that starting line advantage carried him to the finish line. And he must have been so excited about winning the race against the old pro over there that he forgot to stop the car, and off the end of the strip he goes.
All right, so the pairing for the top alcohol final looks like this. Pete Newhart up against Bucky Austin. And hey, Bucky, Newhart has lane choice. You are indeed going to have to race somebody. Let's go down to the far end. Brock Yates is with Pete Newhart.
I'll tell you what, first to get by Anderson, now Newberry. Oh, Austin on the other side, he's had by runs all day long, so they can't say it's been easy for you.
Well, we've been climbing the mountain, Brock, and it's been a tough mountain to climb. The Minor family has really played a large role in this thing. You can't win the Kentucky Derby on Ned's nag, so you really have to have a car under you to really be able to perform and to really do your job correctly.
Well, you've sure been doing a great job. Congratulations.
Thank you, Brock. Thank you very much.
Ned's nag. I know that horse. Put a 5er on him at Santa Anita, and he's right. You can't win on Ned's nag. We'll be back to Phoenix right after this.
Welcome back to the NHRA Motorcraft Sportsman Nationals. We see David Nickens' Oldsmobile pulling onto the pad for the competition finals. But first, this from Steve.
Well, this is certainly not an uncommon sight. A drag racer like Brad Anderson taking a few minutes to catch up on the latest drag racing news and, of course, National Dragster magazine. Brad, what would it be like without this publication?
We'd definitely be lost. We need this thing to know what's happening all over the country week to week and year to year. Without it, we're lost.
And as a businessman who makes drag racing parts, it's important for that reason, too.
Well, it passes on our name to all the customers out there, and without that, they wouldn't know where we were.
Well, what do you know? A picture of Brad Anderson's funny car. What can you tell by looking at that picture? Is it on a good pass? Is it doing everything right?
Yeah, it won. That's amazing.
That's right. You can't have heroes if there's no newspaper to read about all of their exploits. Thanks.
That's right.
Now, how do you get this indispensable tool? There's only one way. You join the National Hot Rod Association. For $45 a year, you get 48 issues, along with a lot of other goodies. And if you call the number on your screen right now, they'll also throw in free a copy of Diamond P Sports Drag Racing 90. Enjoy National Dragster. Make that call. Okay, now we are going to bring you the final runs of all the sportsman categories decided earlier here in Phoenix. First of all, it was the Super Gas Final. Bob Harris versus Larry Marshall. Larry Marshall in the bright red Chevrolet. Super Gas is run on an index of 990. If you run quicker than 990, you are out of competition. Harris and Marshall both being very careful to not do that. Harris had a big hole shot and ran a 997, defeating his competition's 995. Again, good driving wins Super Gas Eliminator. Next up was the Super Comp Final. It's also a breakout category, but much quicker. The breakout being 8.90. Bob and Kathy Keats' beautiful Pink Street Roadster, Albert Padron at the wheel, up against Greg Carrillo. Carrillo in the little bitty dragster. Now again, they couldn't run quicker than 890 or they would be disqualified. And again, driving played, well, a pretty big role as Carrillo in the dragster got the better start. And even though he didn't run quite as quick as Padron, he got the victory at 8.94 seconds to a quicker but losing 8.93. Congratulations to Greg Carrillo, a nice Super Comp Eliminator victory. Then came Super Stock, and this is another one of the index categories, like Competition Eliminator, except here if you run quicker than your index, you're out. In the near lane, it was Jeff Lane. In the far lane, Jim Crossy Jr. I love these wheel-standing Super Stocks. Now, you'd think wheel-standing that high would have eliminated Jeff Lane. Not so. He maintained control, and he won Super Stock here at the Motorcraft Sportsman Nationals at 10:35, 126 miles an hour on the brake to make sure he didn't run too quick. Next up was Stock Eliminator, the same basic competition rules as Super Stock as far as the starting situation is concerned. It was Kenny Moore in the near lane and John Calvert over on the far side. They don't do the wheel stands quite as high because they don't have quite as much power. A pair of Mustangs in the finals in stock eliminator, and John Calvert was the winner at 11.15 seconds, 113 miles an hour, as Kenny Moore had a pretty poor reaction time, and that probably cost him the race. Congratulations to all of our sportsmen finals, and now it's back to competition eliminator. David Nickens versus Dan Nicholson. What do you think, Big Daddy?
Well, I'm going to take the Corvette because I take my hat off to him. It's a hard car to drive. Watch how it moves around when he does burnouts. It doesn't have all that nice aerodynamic down pressure that the David Nickens car has got.
Well, I'm going to take Nickens because just for those very reasons. He has got a more stable automobile, and of course he's won about the last 5 races here at Firebird. So Big Daddy likes the Corvette. I think he's just got a soft place in his heart for that machine because it's got a blower on it. I'll take Nickens, and we'll see what happens. Okay, the race, the final and competition eliminator is at hand. And don't tell Big Daddy, but I know that David Nickens changed engines before the finals and put in his killer motor. He thinks this thing will really fly. We're about to find out. I wish I'd put some money on this. They inch in. You're in trouble, Big. Away goes Nickens. A brilliant start. Nicholson has a very poor reaction time. Something must have distracted him. Maybe the car hesitated. It's not even a contest. We should have bet, Don, I'm telling you. 797 wins it for Nickens with his new motor at 164 miles per hour. See if you can see in our replay why maybe the Corvette had such a lousy start.
Well, I'll tell you, that was a bad start because these guys usually do well. But maybe he was just watching him go. I mean, look at him go out there. Then he gets started, but it's an hour and a half late. Well, it's like another car race.
Well, Nickens almost had the perfect light. He was 9 thousandths away from it, and maybe you're right. Maybe Nicholson said, how did he do that before he realized that his light was on? But again, it's David Nickens winning here again at Firebird Raceway and the Sports Nationals. Let's go down to Brock Gage with the champ.
It's a dream to win 5 in a row. I just don't know how it happens sometimes, but you got to have a lot of luck, a lot of skill. The guys at the shop, I mean, they just worked for us, and the good Lord was looking out for us.
You also backed it up with what we understand was perfect reaction time on the line, just a perfect, flawless start, so that didn't hurt either.
Well, I tell you, sometimes when the chips are down, it just seems like you do good, and I just couldn't let them guys down after they worked so hard for me, and I'm so proud for them guys and Castro and Oldsmobile for being behind us.
Well, we're sure proud of you. Congratulations on number 5.
Thank you, sir.
David Nickens, great job.
Pass on our congratulations as well, Brock, if you can calm him down. He shakes the competitor's hand, Dan Nicholson. He had a great day, just came up just a wee bit short. We'll be back with the finals in alcohol. Only 2 races remain at the NHRA Motorcraft Sportsman Nationals. Top Alcohol Dragster and Top Alcohol Funny Car to follow. Big Daddy Don Garlis, a couple of great names here. A guy named Prim and a guy named Slick. Eldon P. Slick and Roger Prim. How do you like it?
I tell you, I like the names. It's names that'll stick with you. You won't be forgetting them, that's for sure, right?
Absolutely, and I think it's about an even call here. Neither driver has had a particularly outstanding advantage performance-wise. It may be Bouli's first.
Well, it's been that way all day here at Phoenix.
Reaction times are everything when racing is this close. The advantage to Roger Prim. The win to Roger Prim. 6.15, and indeed he won it on a hole shot. Eldon P. Slick was quicker at 6.12. Don's with Terry Manzer.
Well, the car sure runs steady all day. Now, it fell off just a little bit then, but you got there first.
Yeah, the driver did his job. That's what counts sometimes. So I think maybe the track's getting a little bit slippery, and we know what to do with right now, but the driver did his job, and that's what counts.
Well, I saw just a little bit of blue smoke come off the bottom of the tires on both cars, so they probably did slip a little bit right at the line.
Yeah, I think that's what happened. So, thank you.
Don, watch this replay with me. It's a kind of a strange race.
Well, Prim, you can see he definitely moves first. But the other car of Slick moves right out. It had a tremendous 60-foot time, probably. But then down court, Prim's car then makes up a little bit more of the difference and gets by him.
So we really had 2 leaders in this race.
Yes, we did. And, you know, that happens in drag racing, and the drivers seesaw back and forth down course.
All right, let's go down to Brock.
Well, Roger, first of all, congratulations. First ever national event win. And also, 6:16 to a 6:12, but your reaction time right on the old line did it for you. So a little lower ET, but the victory is yours.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. I got to thank my crew, my sponsor, Whiskey Pete's Casino in Vegas, and this looks a tough one. I mean, it looks like we heard something doing it, so.
Yeah, but you got all week to repair.
We got all week to repair it, and they better watch out in Houston.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
For sure.
Don Garlitz, if you'd have had a Las Vegas casino as a sponsor, you might never got back to Florida.
That's exactly right. I'd headed right over there with the winnings, as lucky as he was, right if he blew it right in the lights.
You bet. Well, speaking of Mr. Lucky, Bucky Austin, this is the first time today he's had to line up with any competition. And I hope he's been watching what Pete Duhart has been accomplishing today, because the young man, the rookie driver, has been sensational.
I think so. Like, I've been harping on that driving school. Every time I see him go down the course, I think more highly of it.
All right, here we go. Bucky Austin, Bar Lane, Washington State. Pete Duhart, Huntington Beach, California. An almost perfect light for Duhart in the blue car. A 4.0 light. And he just pounds on Bucky Austin. A 6.07 to a 6.13. The car outperformed Bucky's car, and Duhart outperformed Bucky on the starting line. Let's go to Don.
A very nice, steady day for you. Yeah, we speeded up a little bit every round, and our driver was sharp as hell, so we managed to get this one in the bag. It was a lot of fun. Good show. Thank you.
That's always been the Minor Brothers philosophy. It was a lot of fun.
Well, I'll tell you, it was exciting to watch it. When we watch this replay, you see that Duhart really welds Austin on the line and never cut him any slack. He just kept pulling away all the way down. So Austin didn't get that tune-up that they thought they were going to get for that final round. And the Duhart bunch, they just kept wheeling away.
Well, they say a driver needs to become, I think in Duhart's case, he won it on adrenaline. Rocky Ace is with new champion.
Unbelievable, Pete. Fantastic. Congratulations. You worked. Last time I saw you, you were about a half a mile out in the desert here. Went back, got that race car together. 6.07 and a victory.
Really, it's a tribute to the Minor family, Fred Sr., Fred Jr., Larry, Milan, Carl Stromstead, Justin Knuckles. They're the ones that really made it happen. They put that car back together after winning into the dirt. We just remained calm and went up there and did our deal, as they say in racing. And I just tried to do my job on the starting line again. They gave me a good car to drive, and this is just the greatest day of my life. My belief in the Lord above and his faith in me has really brought me to these heights, and it's really him that I have to thank.
Well, that's great. That's a great thought. Pete, your reaction time was terrific all day long, flawless on this line, and you drove the car perfect.
Person who taught me to drive these cars is Frank Hawley, and when I first started driving, admittedly, I was a slow learner, but it seemed that I just didn't want to quit. I really enjoyed driving these cars. I wanted to try to be somebody, as they say in racing, and maybe we're on the right track.
You better believe it. Congratulations.
Thank you, Brock.
Okay.
Pete Duhart will never forget this day. Our congratulations to all the winners here at Firebird. In Alcohol Dragster, Roger Prim. In Competition Eliminator, David Nickens. For Brock Yates and Don Garlitz, I'm Steve Evans. Thanks for joining us.
The executive producer for American Sports Cavalcade is Harvey M. Palish. Supervising producer, John B. Mullen. Produced and directed by Mark Kuchin. Promotional consideration provided for and a fee paid by this special offer from Diamond P.
They take it to the limit and beyond. They force body and machine to the extremes of endurance. Often unpredictable, always spectacular. That's the reason Diamond P Sports has once again opened its action-packed archives to produce a dramatic new video entitled And They Walked Away Too. The blazing inferno of high-performance gone awry. Open-wheel sprint cars locked in death-defying ballets. The heart-stopping drama of unbelievable two-wheel disasters. Awesome displays of man and metal turned to mayhem. To get your copy of And They Walked Away Too, send $24.95 plus $4 shipping and handling to the address on your screen. Or better yet, call 1-800-767-9700. Visa and MasterCard accepted, no CODs. That's 1-800-767-9700. Call today.
The American Sports Cavalcade is a presentation of Diamond P Sports.